There are 7 things that make up mental collectedness, or right concentration. Right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, and right mindfulness. He's explaining here that right samadhi is basically the Eightfold Path. And then he says, tranquility of mind composed of these 7 supports is called the wise collectedness of the awakened ones, with its causes and conditions. Now you guessed the topic of this evening. So we're going to talk about permaculture. It's really funny because I've been explaining the Eightfold Path in that way for, it's started to creep up in my mind because I was looking for an analogy to describe it properly, and over the past year it's been kind of slowly creeping up, and I'm not done, by the way, with the sheet. I'm just, this is kind of like the first draft of it. There's pieces missing, but it's better than nothing. And I actually really like it because it ties into, again, this analogy of gardening and permaculture and all this good stuff. And now we're here at Tierra More, and it's just so fanatic. So does anybody know the Eightfold Path? Yeah? If you raise your hand. Great, so we have a few raised hands, so maybe 4, 5, 6 people. Okay. And so the Eightfold Path in the Buddha's teaching is apparently quite important. If you've ever heard of the Buddha's teaching or Buddhism, you've probably heard either the Eightfold Path and the Four Noble Truths. So usually that's kind of all coming together. And the Four Noble Truths are found in the Eightfold Path, and the Eightfold Path is found in the Four Noble Truths. And one of my deep questionings on this path, because I've been practicing Buddhism and all kinds of meditation practices that basically are meant to be from Buddhism, and we were talking about the Eightfold Path, and it took me a really long time to understand of course, the Eightfold Path is the Eightfold Path. Does somebody know all the rights? Mm-hmm.
Wise understanding, wise speech, wise behavior, wise living action.
Yeah, very good.
Wise practice, awareness, meditation. I'm missing one.
Wow, you're doing very good. And you're using my vocabulary, which is like, I was not expecting that. Yes, all right. Well, I asked for it, so here it comes. I was wondering, because this is my translation, and thank you, that's very good. And it's also in the book, and tonight will be, what we will be studying is also in the puja book, so you can all follow with me. I'll be reading from that. And it's, I don't actually remember the page. Yes, so 114 exactly. The explanation of the path. So in the classical vocabulary in Buddhism, this would be understood as, the Eightfold Path is understood as right view, which is the first one. Then we have right intention, then right speech, right action, right livelihood, and then right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. Yes, the word, all of the words that I just said is like usually the way that it's translated. But my translations are a bit different, and it's very purposeful, deliberate, because there's a few terms in there that are a little bit problematic, and that this is the goal tonight. We'll be exploring that and why I choose certain terms instead of others. And in my journey to understand the Buddha's teaching, because the Eightfold Path is so important, it's just like we talk about it all the time, and it's so central to the teaching, and it feels like if there's one thing we should understand is like the Eightfold Path. And so that's how I felt. And then, but my meditation practices, somehow, because I was practicing like one-pointed absorption, which is like putting my attention on a unmoving object, or just like fixing my attention on something. And then they would, so at large in Buddhism right now, this is usually called, like understood as samadhi. You would like practice, for example, seeing the breath coming in and out of your nostrils, and you focus on this for days, and the mind becomes concentrated. So that is what is understood as samadhi, usually. But then I couldn't understand how that related to something that is called right effort, which I call wise practice, which is all about, the Buddha says, like abandoning unwholesome mental states and cultivating wholesome mental states. And I was like, yeah, sure, I'm pointing my mind into like on my breath, and it's becoming very one-pointed. And you know, like just like you're really good at looking at things. That's what happens. So I was really good at doing that. Yep. And basically, so what happens when you do that is that just the force of the concentration basically shuts all the hindrances out. And so you think that the hindrances are not there anymore. But the thing is that they're not actually let go of with wisdom. So the mind is not actually understood, it's just shut out. And when you stop putting that effort, then they come back in. And you remember, I think it was yesterday, I was telling my little story about how I was long-term server in a big Vipassana center, and I was working in the kitchen, and I would finish my 10-day retreat, and I would go back to the kitchen, and then it would be all gone. My mind was just a mess, like usual. Well, not a mess, but a little bit less, but not, it didn't feel like I just ended a 10-day retreat. And it just always left me more and more wondering, what's going on here. And it turns out I didn't understand right effort. Like when the Buddha was explaining that, I just basically really didn't feel like I was practicing right effort at all. Like abandoning unwholesome mental states and cultivating wholesome ones, like sure. Like I did 10 minutes of loving kindness at the end of a 10-day retreat, and that was maybe But anyways, I was trusting the process. And yeah, but when I had so many questions, and I asked so many, even like leading monks of very well-known traditions, like abbots of monasteries and renowned like monasteries in Asia, and they would all tell me, this is too complicated. This is abhidhamma. This is like a very like advanced doctrine and things like that. And the jhanas. I think I'd like to give a talk on this, like samatha and vipassana, these two aspects of the practice, and kind of explain what's going on there. But in any case, they were telling me basically, yeah, you're a layperson, you can't understand this, and because it takes monks like lifetimes to understand. So much for my answers. And then I came upon my teacher, my meditation teacher, Bhante Vimaramsi, who actually just passed away last year. And I was trying so many different teachings and trying to understand what was going on. And he was basically answering all of my questions. I couldn't really understand, like the way that he was seeing the path was very different, and it really resonated. And through his teaching, I started to understand really what the Eightfold Path was and how it worked. And because his teachings also went back to the original texts, and I was really interested in that. And the original texts also, the teachings, started to make a whole lot of sense from this new perspective. Because I was reading teachings like, very famous teachings, by the way, that are found in the Buddha's original texts. There are 7 things that make up mental collectedness, or right concentration. What 7? Right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, and right mindfulness. And so here in my vocabulary, that would be wise understanding, wise intention or attitude, wise speech, wise behavior, wise living, wise practice, and wise presence. And so basically the Buddha was saying, like, samadhi, because I was also very curious and interested in that word, samadhi, which is Buddha's original. Before the time of the Buddha, in the Vedas, for example, that word did not exist. And it's only after the Buddha that it came up, and then it was used by all kinds of other traditions around, like Hinduism and yogic traditions, to explain other things. But realistically, the Buddha put that word on the map, and he's explaining here that right samadhi is basically the Eightfold Path. And I was like, okay, so samadhi is not looking at my nostrils? Because that's what I was thinking. It's like, well, I'm looking at the air coming in and out of my nostrils. So at that point, I'm reading this and I'm like, what does he mean? And then he says, tranquility of mind composed of these 7 supports is called the wise collectedness of the awakened ones, with its causes and conditions. And so the Eightfold Path, this is kind of what got me thinking about, okay, maybe I don't really understand what this is, because it seems like my meditation practice is not really telling me, allowing me to understand what's going on here. But here, what we've been developing is very wholesome states, like loving kindness. And we have a very different approach because we work with loving kindness and we work with the 6 R's. And loving kindness is the wholesome development of this, and the 6 R's is the letting go part, because there's 2 sides of right effort. And so here, what we've been developing is exactly this. Using our understanding of mental states and their nature, and using them to collect and calm the mind. So the calmness and unity of the mind that we experience here is not obtained by controlling the mind or forcing the mind onto an object. It actually comes by understanding the nature of mental states and choosing the wholesome ones, letting go of the unwholesome ones. And by nature, the mind becomes pure and collected. And this, when we do this like that, the whole teachings start to make a whole lot of sense, because we're basically practicing exactly what's written here. And by the way, it took me like more than 5 years to understand this. Well, actually, no, I'm not very, like 7 years. Yeah. So I am giving you tonight what I've understood in many years of studying and practicing. So that's nice. And I'm it's nice for you, but I'm like, I wish I had somebody telling me too. Yeah. Anyways, and this particular sutta was the first sutta I translated, because I'm not lying to you. I was really wanting to understand what the Buddha was saying about the Eightfold Path, because I felt it was really important, and I felt like I really didn't understand what it meant. And so here we are. Let's embark on the journey. Monks, I will teach you the 8-spoked path of the awakened ones, and I will break it down for you. Listen carefully and apply your mind to what I will say. That was great. That was great. That was unexpected. Very good. I was like, wait, I'm hearing voices. Beautiful. And this is, by the way, one of the only suttas where the Buddha is really breaking it down and like explaining very efficiently each of the spoke without saying too much about it and too little. So it's that sweet spot. What is the 8-spoked path of the awakened ones? That is wise understanding, wise attitude, wise speech, wise behavior, wise living, wise practice, wise awareness, and wise meditation. Sometimes I call samadhi meditation. Sometimes I call it mental collectedness. Because a little bit further down the road, we might talk about this. These words are being used in many ways, and it's really hard in English to have one word for like an exact translation, because in these languages, like for example in Sinhalese, where I live in Sri Lanka, these languages, they tend to have a lot bigger semantic field for each word. So you can use these words for a lot of more different things. Like we have a lot more words in English than in Pali. And so sometimes the Buddha means more like meditation. For example, the Eightfold Path is divided in 3 categories: Sila, Samadhi, Panya, which is the virtue, the Samadhi, the meditation, or collectedness, but really you'll see that it means more like meditation. And then Panya, which is wisdom or discernment. And so first we have wise understanding. What is wise understanding, monks? Somebody wants to read it?
that is amongst knowing what is tension, knowing the cause of tension, knowing the release from tension, knowing the way to release the tension.
Very good.
This is all quite understanding.
Very good. And so here, what do you think is the usual translation for tension? Dukkha, which would be the classical term, would be, it's a big word, suffering, yes. So for me, I don't know, when we talk about suffering, I just see like some bacon slices in a really hot pan going. It's like, like you're being like seared, in pain, in like, I don't know. It's like this really intense experience. For me, suffering, that's what it brings up in my mind. Anyways, everybody's got their own. Yes, Matt.
Well, just lost it. But you said the other day that dukkha meant like something else, right?
Yeah, that's yeah, exactly. So dukkha means unpleasant.
Right.
Well, it can mean so many things. Like I just said, these words have a big semantic field, and yeah, especially those words, they're very hard to translate because they get used for all kinds of things. So sometimes it does mean something heavier, but a lot of the time is, sukha is like unpleasant and pleasant. Yeah.
Can you just talk a little bit about like your process for how you discern what was the right translation?
Mm-hmm.
It's like that seems like a big gray area.
Right translation is important.
Right translation is the ninth spoke of the path. Yeah, so basically, well, I always was feeling like this was like when we talk about like suffering, it's like, okay, it's serious business, it's like we're all suffering, I always thought that was a bit intense. But then, it only came about when I started practicing differently and cultivating this practice and seeing the results and understanding. And Bhante Vimaramsi in the first place was always, he was always pretty critical about this idea in Buddhism, or this, general understanding that life is suffering, basically, because that is very present in the teachings, which makes it very negative. And he would always say, life is not suffering, there is suffering in life. And that is true. But, life is not always suffering. It's not like... And the thing is that this comes from one of the first teachings that the Buddha gave, which is called the Dhammacakkappavattana, which is like the setting in motion the wheel of Dhamma. It's his first teaching, basically, to the 5 ascetics who left him when they were all together, Jain ascetics, practicing austerities for years together. And then at some point he started eating again, like I mentioned. And they're like, he's slacking off. We're just like, yeah, we're gone. The sentence is, he has reverted back to a life of luxury. Because he started eating rice pudding. so And I was actually there in Bodh Gaya where he received his first meal after all the tapas, and it's really interesting. And so when he came back to the 5 ascetics, because when he broke through to awakening in Bodh Gaya, he kind of scanned the world with his supervision, and that's how it's kind of said. And he just tried to see like who could understand what he just understood. And he directly thought of his 2 past teachers. and some kind of deva just appeared and said, like, no, they're gone, like they're dead. They passed away like 2 weeks ago. And so he was like, okay, so maybe not them. And then and then he started thinking about the 5 ascetics, which just left, and he just started practicing alone. And so he thought, yeah, maybe these guys would understand. So he set off to where they were in another place, and that's in Deer Park. And he finds them, and he gives them the first discourse, which is about, this is what I understood, like, and it's a pretty heavy, discourse, because he's talking to like 5 ascetics that have been practicing tapas for like years, like ascetic practices. And what he understood was like the Four Noble Truths, and how, and he does say, birth is dukkha, like troublesome birth, and then like basically talking about samsara, like this whole cycle. But to try to like bring this forward as like a beginner's teaching in Buddhism is just not smart. It's not. This is very profound material, and you need a lot of background to understand this properly. And so the problem is that this, in the traditional way that, for example, like Theravada Buddhism has evolved, now that teaching, it's put at the forefront because it's the first teaching of the Buddha, and it's like, the emphasis is all on the Buddha and his awakening, and because we're quite a ways from the Buddha's time nowadays, so a lot of things have happened. I can't really explain everything, but catch up on 2,600 years. There's been lots of wars and lots of problems and famines for years. The reason why the teachings were put down on written form was that monks in Sri Lanka went through, there was a 12-year famine, and they thought, we're going to lose this teaching. So they wrote it down on palm leaves. And that's why Sri Lankan calligraphy is all round, because if you do straight lines, you split the palm leaves. So that's why they have that scripture. And they basically developed calligraphy at the same time that they put that down on paper. So it's very ancient, it's part of their tradition, so it's very big there. And of course for them it's like, and in all the Buddhist countries, it's like the first discourse of the Buddha is like, it's something to worship, so it's just different. But nowadays it's been so long that, if you put that forward, it's like, yeah, it's true. It's true that it's the first teaching of the Buddha, but you have to put it in context. It was given to it was his first teaching right after awakening. It took him years to develop his teaching, by the way. You can see the evolution. At the beginning, it's not that elaborate. And then it keeps getting more and more elaborate. And at some point, he comes up with this, a more elaborate path that everybody can understand and follow quite easily. So the first teaching is great. It's an amazing thing. And it does say that, a lot of things are dukkha, like birth and death and sickness and aging and all that, and it's true. But the thing is that we need to put these things in perspective. So in reality, when you start really studying the teachings of the Buddha in the original text, you start to notice that he's always talking about mental states, and that's another thing that I was noticing. And he's always talking about wholesome, kusala, and unwholesome mental states, akusala. And when he's talking about the Four Noble Truths, or what is dukkha, he's actually talking about craving, which is another big word, but it's just like dissatisfaction, discontentment, not being okay with what is. And when you start understanding that the dukkha here was always really meant to be seen as, well, anger is suffering. Like loving kindness is the release from that. Jealousy is suffering or, painful. Another word for dukkha is painful, hurtful. Yes?
What about trauma?
Well, that's actually, I say that quite a bit, is that, trauma is the same thing. It's like, it's the new dukkha, And it's true, it just fits that mold perfectly too. Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm sorry. I was thinking about more subtle versions of when you use the word tension.
Yes.
Like just even that physical sensation of thinking and the grip in the mind that we've all been feeling, this tension in the head, that it's even so subtle. It doesn't have to be like trauma or suffering. It's just like.
Exactly. And that's exactly why I make a big effort in my own translations to change that into a softer and a more applicable also. Because when you change it to tension, and that's why I choose that here, is that you can use it in meditation. And it's like directly applicable. So yes, very good. Mm-hmm. That's exactly why.
But we make so many stories about the tension too, right? Like you have that tension, and all of a sudden, oh, it's because this happened in my life, and it spins, right? That's at least for me.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes.
I assume you know, but dukkha from Sanskrit in modern Hindi, we still use it for you're very sad or disease or upset. Until now, we still use it that way, right?
Yeah. It's in these countries. It's still used in Sinhalese also. It's very common. Relatively common. Yeah. Dukkha in Sinhala is actually sadness. Mm-hmm. But it's not. It doesn't actually mean suffering. That's just the thing. Is that we have to understand is that when I started translating and like deepening my knowledge into this, like these translations that have become classical. They come from the United Kingdom a long time ago. And, the knowledge of Buddhism 70 years ago was not the one that we have today. And it just hasn't evolved. It hasn't changed. We're still using the same Poly-English dictionary, which I'm actually, Well, that's going to take me like 100 years, but... and you can just see, like I spend a lot of time in that dictionary and other dictionaries because I have a whole bunch open when I'm translating, and I'm just finding, like doing a lot of etymology research, and a lot of the time, it's not really that accurate. And the thing is that they are often, you'll see that the definition that they've opted for was like basically found in like commentaries, which are basically texts that became canonized with the original teachings, but were written like thousands of years later from unknown sources. So that's also a problem. Really, in reality, these words and these translations, they have a very specific context, and when we understand that, it opens some doors also to understand these things in a different way. What I personally like to do is to find the definitions or the places in the original texts where the Buddha would kind of explain these terms in his own words, and these are the descriptions or that's the meaning that I'm going to use usually, or that I'll try to refer to when I'm translating. So, for example, the word samadhi, here the Buddha says it's the Eightfold Path. Well, that's kind of like the definition that I'm going towards, not the definition that is found in the Pali English dictionary, which says samadhi is concentration, which is okay. And when you learn where that came from, basically it's from a text that is 1,000+ years after the Buddha. Because throughout the wars and the famines, the meditation was lost. That's what I understand of it. Because the lineages like of monks and nuns in Sri Lanka were basically extinct for at some point. It was shaved off, even from Sri Lanka. And, when you go through 12-year famine, like, you can't, like, you really think meditation is really good? I don't think so. So, I really do think that with the years and, just seeing the tendencies of all the different branches of Buddhism, like, they all have different ways of meditating. Like in Vajrayana, they have very complicated and complex visualizations of deities, and it's quite beautiful actually, but it's very different from, let's say, like the early teachings, and other branches of Buddhism have very different practices too. So there's quite good evidence that we just some time in the middle there we kind of lost what that really meant. In any case, for me, when I started practicing in this way, the original text did not make sense at all at first when I was practicing the other ways of meditation. I was just reading that, and I was reading the joy. I was reading about the jhanas. I was reading about the nature of mental states. I was reading about right effort, and I was like, what is this? Like, it doesn't make sense. I'm not doing that. Like, I hope I am. I'm trusting that, like, whatever I'm being told as meditation instructions is leading me there, but I couldn't relate. But practicing like this, now all of it makes sense, because it's just what we're doing. We're directly working with mental states. And so, okay. So it should be a little quicker from here. And what is wise attitude or right intention? Somebody wants to be a brave soul.
That is, monks, the attitude of letting go, the attitude of non-anger, the attitude of harmlessness. This is called wise attitude.
Very good. Wonderful. And so here we have the Four Noble Truths, which are part of wise understanding, and now we have wise intention or wise attitude, which is basically the three most wholesome states that we can that are to be developed. So with the template here of the Four Noble Truths, which is like the wise way of understanding things, what is causing us pain or hurt or trouble, and what is its cause, basically discontent. And then there's a way out, there's a way to let that go. And then there's the path, the whole of the path of practice. And this is kind of like the lens by which we see. In the practice, the 6 R's have the Four Noble Truths inbuilt in them. So I've been telling most people on interviews that, and also on the talks, that the most important part of the 6 R's is the relaxed step. Why? Because tension in the mind creates tension in the body, or because distractions mental states that cause distractions in the mind cause tension in the body. And when we notice that, it's sneaky because I don't talk about it, but I'm basically telling you this to practice the Four Noble Truths. And in the end, if we are going to be doing anything in meditation, if there's no Four Noble Truths, really, it's not really close to the Buddha's teaching, to be honest. Because we're not really developing the very first thing we should be developing. And so that was another thing that I started to notice. It was that I didn't feel like, for example, when I was sitting equanimously through like 3 hours of pure pain, I was like, that's how I stopped actually, was in the middle of a 10-day retreat. And I was like, you know what? This is not the end of suffering. And I thought, you know, I'm actually developing it. Cultivating. Here, come in. Yay. And then I actually I went back from Vipassana. I stopped. I didn't tell my teacher, and I went back to Anapanasati because I was like, at least I can be just like, just calm. And so, yeah, so that was my insight. So I was not feeling like I was practicing the end of tension. And for me, this is very important because I sat for a long time with pain. So really, in the end, if we don't practice the Four Noble Truths, we're not really practicing the Buddha's teaching. And so the 6 R's are a sneaky way to get everybody practicing and understand later that they've been practicing the Four Noble Truths. Because every time you do the 6 R's, that's what you're doing. That's the template that you're applying. And that's why I make sure on interviews that people understand that the most important part is the relaxed step, and it's because the tension in the mind comes from the unwholesome distractions, which we are slowly turning into wholesome. Very good. And slowly turning into wholesome, which means the 3 right intentions, the 3 wise attitudes. And this is where I take the 2 wings to awakening, by the way. One side is to let go and relax. The other wing is to uplift the mind with love and joy. When you beat these 2 wings, you're good to go. And those are the 6 R's. Again, the 6 R's is just the same thing. And this is where I like to see as, this is where the meditation is. We are talking here about the first field, and this is where it ties into the permaculture analogy. In permaculture, there's different zones, and the zone closest to us in the mind is the intention. And when we come on retreat, this is where we're working from, and everything else arises out of that. If we have the right intention in the mind, then there will be right speech. So, and what is wise speech? Yes.
That is, monks, abstaining from false speech, abstaining from spiteful speech, abstaining from unkind speech, abstaining from senseless talk. This is called wise speech.
This is also called gossiping. And so now we are going into zone 2, which is a little further from the house. And I like to see zone 1 as like the propagation area. Oh, isn't it? In the mind. Isn't the mind a nice propagation area? I actually started thinking like that because I was working in a big organic greenhouse, and we had a big section that was just dedicated to propagation, which is completely normal. It's just the way it is. And it really got me thinking into like this whole thing is like basically the mind is that place where everything gets propagated, wholesome or unwholesome. And then it goes into speech, which is the next door, the next zone. And so this is kind of like the analogy of the garden. So the garden needs a lot of attention, and we're always using that. Quite often, speech is a very big part of our lives. And this is why on retreat is so special, because we actually we make sure that these conditions are extremely conducive, and we basically make sure that by body, speech, and mind, nothing really can impede you to do the inner work. And this is very, very, very precious. In life, usually you won't get that. There is 10 days in a meditation retreat, and there are 355 days of the year where you can talk. And 10 days is nothing. It's really nothing. And this is like pure gold time for you to actually go real deep. And so it's really important to, these retreats, they, Matt reached out to me a year ago. We started planning for this because these retreats are a big endeavor. They require a lot of logistics and thought and care and a lot of generosity. The whole staff here is working for all of you to go in, so that you do not have any as least as possible hindrances and distractions. And it's very important. These conditions, they're so rare, so rare. And I am very, when we first talked about this project, I said that I only want to teach retreats that are donation-based, because for me it's very, very, very important that these teachings remain free from a price. I don't think money should ever be a problem to get the Buddha's teaching, because the Buddha was just always offering this with an open hand. There was never any question of money in there. And I'm quite adamant about that. But that's not easy. It doesn't, like a free retreat does not exist. And so, it's a huge mission and huge generosity and huge work to be given this opportunity. We just made it in Australia. We do the same formula, and just with the donation that we had, we're just able to do the one next year. And some people would just not be able to afford it otherwise. And for me, this is so uplifting, and people come with the feeling of being offered something very precious, instead of like, I pay for it and I'm entitled to get something. And that changes. Like, I've done both, and the other formula doesn't interest me. It keeps these retreats genuine and authentic and real. And I think that's like almost 50% of the retreat. It makes a big part of it. And I'm saying all of this just to put some weight in the how important and how amazing this opportunity is, and to take the most out of it. This is so much work and dedication and generosity from Tierra Amor, and I'm not the one putting on this retreat, so I'm just, I'm teaching it, but I'm not organizing it, and I'm not offering it like the food and everything. Like, that's not me. That's here. That's Tierra Amor. That's Matt. That's the whole team. And this is a lot of generosity, and I think it's really important to honor that and to take these precious conditions and make the most out of it. And meditate, enjoy, remain quiet, and also allow everybody else the opportunity to make the most out of this. And so wise speech, and on retreat, the reason why we maintain silence is of course, every morning we say, oh yeah, I abstain from false speech. But on retreat, and we're also going a little bit further than that. We're holding silence because before the mind breaks into speech, it's already talking a lot in there before it breaks into speech. Physical speech, and then even more when it comes into action. And so the reason why we let that go is so that we're making sure that the inner chatter is not fueled. And so that is actually for you. It's for you to use that precious, you'll have 355 days to let that out, to talk about your 10 days. So, yes.
Could you define senseless talk?
Yes. Well, I mean, in the teachings, there's a whole big list where the Buddha is talking about, and it's funny to see what the people were talking about at that time too. It's like kings and kingdoms and countries and the land and the sea and men and women, and they call it well gossip, because at that time they would go to the well to fetch water, and like everybody goes to the well. It's like, oh, did you see this guy? So basically, for the monks, for us, it's like talking about anything that doesn't pertain to Dhamma. Really, that's what that means. I would say, in general, that's like talking about something that is not really necessary and that is not well directed, like wholesome. Often it's like a social kind of thing that when we don't have anything to talk about, we'll start complaining about some stuff. Like that is kind of like, not so much. Mm-hmm. It's just that slippery slope, and it ties back into the negativity bias. Basically, it's just the way that we're entraining the mind, just because the way that we've evolved, and it's a very common thing. But it's just to break that habit, to let that go. It's like when you hear these things, well, maybe you want to say like, well, the food was really good, or like, do you say like, that's what I like to do sometimes. I'll just spice it up. Just say like, well, that was really nice, or just raise it up. But yeah, that's how I see it. Good question. And what is wise behavior, right action? Who's the brave person?
That is monks, abstaining from mistreating living beings, abstaining from taking what is not given, abstaining from sexual misconduct.
Very good. Oh, sorry. I forgot there was a...
That is called wise behavior.
That is called wise behavior, effectively. Does that ring a bell? Do we say that every morning? Yeah, good. So here we're going more into like the bigger fields. I like personally, I spend a lot of time in Asia. There's a lot of rice paddy fields, and I just wanted to put that there. Where it's kind of like this the bigger crop. Now a little bit coarser, we have this this area of our lives where we will also have to decide to remain with the wholesome. And the next one, what is wise living?
That is, monks, a follower of the awakened ones, abandons unwise modes of living, and shapes life by wise method of living.
Clear as mud. Sorry, I stopped you from here.
This is called wise living.
Oh, okay. Phew. Okay, I wasn't sure. Very good. So now, what in the whole analogy? So basically, I like to call those the four fields or the four zones. Is the intention or the attitude, and then we have speech, and then we have action, which is getting coarser and coarser, and then our just lifestyle, just career or work or whatever, everything that we do out there. And these four fields are where we will be gardening. And of course, it all comes from the mind. And so that's what we're doing here on this retreat. And we go really to the core, to the essence. Every morning we read, mind precedes all things, all are created by the mind. And so this is why we read this also, is that once we work on the mind, all the rest will be good. But also, you'll notice when you come back into your life, maybe that could fit the dissension model. I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm just hypothesizing here. But when you go back into your life, it's to change these four fields or these three coarser fields into letting go of the unwholesome, moving towards the wholesome. For every as much as you can. There's no like, oh, you should just do this and like leave that job or do this. It's like, actually, it's all about moving closer towards the wholesome as much as you can. And that's all it is. That's the main core of it. And now we step into the action, the gardening part of it. So now we've talked about the four fields, and now we're going to talk about the gardener, the action, the engine of the path. And what is wise practice? Now this is a bigger one. Okay, maybe I can go for this one because I don't want to put too much stress on you. And just by the way, Pali and English have a completely reversed syntax. So I was trying to put like a translation, like word for word translation, but you just can't really do that. So it sounds a bit weird because in Pali, in English we speak subject, verb, object. In Pali we speak subject, object, verb. So the verb is always at the last. So it's like speaking like Yoda. To my casita today I went. So, just so you know, that's why it sounds a bit strange. As for yet unarisen, unfavorable, unwholesome states of mind, one develops the desire not to give rise to them. Through dedicated practice, continually devoting one's mind to it, one undertakes this and makes an effort in that direction. So here, a few interesting things. First, we have the word desire, which is where we find that word, chanda. When I spoke about there is wholesome desire. Wholesome desire is found in right effort or wise practice. There are four parts of wise practice, and this is the first one, is to basically to protect. That was when I was talking about making a fence, the virtues, protecting the garden. So that's what is talked about here, and to have the desire for that. So this is very different from having no desires at all. As for already arisen unfavorable, unwholesome states of mind, one develops the desire to let them go. So that is very wholesome. When impatience arises, or when jealousy arises, or whatever it is, to have the will to let that go, to see it as painful, as just unbeneficial, to let it go. And that is a very skillful desire. So it is actually part of the training. And to make it even more simple, I like to break wise practice into two. And on one side we talk about abandoning unwholesome states, and on one side we talk about cultivating. But these are into 4 categories. As for yet unarisen wholesome states of mind, one develops the desire to give rise to them, the desire to cultivate loving kindness, the desire to cultivate generosity, for example, the desire to cultivate compassion, joy, all these beautiful states, the 7 factors of enlightenment. As for already present wholesome states, one develops the desire to sustain them for their increase, growth, maturation, development through dedicated practice, continually devoting one's mind to it. One undertakes this and makes an effort in that direction. This is called wise practice. And so here to make it simple, so that's why I like to keep it as just 2 folds. Is like one we let go, and the other and protect, and the other one we just cultivate and maintain. And on your little sheet here, that's why I like those little guys. One has a shovel, and sometimes I talk about a fork for weeding, and then pulling out the weeds. And then the other one has a water can to water the good plants, the garden, the food crop. Is there anything else to say about these guys? No, that they're pretty self-explanatory, I think. They look pretty happy too. They got good smiles going on. Just saying. Okay, and what is wise awareness, right mindfulness? Oh, and by the way, the reason why I move away from the word right effort is because of the word effort. So, because the deeper we go in this practice, the more effortless it becomes. And really to put effort would just create tension. And that's actually, in this practice, one of the biggest hindrances for people is that they put way too much effort in like forcing the metta, for example. Like they start feeling it a little bit, and then it's like, no, I have to feel it, or I should really be more mindful, but actually it needs to be more relaxed. And when it's more relaxed, it's actually easier to maintain. So that word effort is usually bringing people in a very different direction. So wise practice, I much prefer. Yes?
So why did you call it the 4 right efforts when you first started?
Well, because usually I speak to people who are not familiar with my own translations and familiar with the classical understanding. So I'm.
So you're defining it now that you have a more sophisticated understanding?
Or just my own take on it. Yeah. And so here, so the little gardener has a trowel or a fork and a water can, and those are the 2 actions of right effort or wise practice. And then as that gardener becomes wiser, they will start to understand things for what they really are or what they really need. And that is, monks, what is wise awareness? That is resting one's awareness on the body, knowing it as only body, not my body, this is beautiful, or this is ugly, and this is too long, this is too short, this is not good enough, this is too good. I don't know. All things are in nature, so I guess whatever is the narrator saying, just seeing it for what it is. It's just the way it is. Intent, fully conscious and present, letting go of tensions and distractions. In reality, this is letting go of any desire for it to be otherwise, or unless, we're talking about like anything that would bring agitation and discontent, basically letting go of that. Resting one's awareness on sensations, knowing them as only sensations. Intent, fully conscious and present, letting go of tensions and distractions. When you let go of the tensions and distractions, when you 6R, you'll just know things for what they are. This is basically what we're training to do little by little. Because when there's no narrator, when there's no inner mob saying, this like this, no, it's like this, then you start to really see things in a very calm way and just the way that they are. Resting one's awareness on mind, knowing it as only mind. Intent, fully conscious and present, letting go of tensions and distractions. Resting one's awareness on mental states, knowing them as only mental states. Intent, fully conscious and present, letting go of tensions and distractions. This is called wise awareness. And here I like to compare it to like the 4 elements and like the body being the earth, water, sensations, the sun is the mind, and the air or the wind is all the mental stuff that's going on. And the gardener just sees these 4 aspects of reality just for what they are and just as for what they need, and just cultivating the wholesome. And the more you cultivate, the more that garden will be healthy. And it's like the loving, caring awareness that is seeing things for what they actually are and need. And what happens after that is when we practice this, when we do the little gardening and we are becoming more and more aware, and the reason why I use the word awareness here is because the word mindfulness is very loaded nowadays with a thick layer of dictionary experience. And personally, it's just too problematic, I find. And awareness is just like, it's just kind of what is meant here, like just being aware. It's not being like mindful like this. It's not what is meant here. And so awareness is just, it comes by wisdom and also by right effort. And naturally there will be the right kind of awareness that comes up. And when we do this, what is wise meditation? And here we just had a whole talk on this yesterday. And these are the 4 first jhanas, the 4 levels of meditation. Disengaging oneself from the senses, letting go of unwholesome mental states, assisted by thinking and imagination, with the joy and happiness born of letting go. One understands and abides in the first level of meditation. Yada, yada, yada. I mean, we just talked about that an hour and a half yesterday. So, and here why, so I think everybody's covered on this. I like to give the Eightfold Path a little bit later, like at day 5 or 6, or even later during the retreat, because at first we need more material and there's more tangible instructions that we need and information to get the practice going. And at some point there's enough information that we can just wrap it all into like, okay, the Eightfold Path, that's what it is. Now we all have enough information. Pretty much everything that we talked about here, you've all heard about it already. The virtues, we talk about them every morning. I've talked about the 6 R's, plenty and right effort and all that. And this is where it fits in. And this is what is the Eightfold Path. And I like to compare wise meditation or the levels of meditation to what is also called the natural succession of in the natural realm, where you have, at first you have like bare rocks, and then this little bit of lichen comes and chews the rocks, and then you have the the pioneer species, which are like just preparing the ground because they thrive in harsher conditions, and they kind of like come and prepare everything, and the more it goes, the more it grows. And these are like the stages of meditation too. Slowly, it's like each of them has a role to do, a role to play. If you try to get to the equanimity without the first joy, it's not going to work. It's just not the way that it works. And so when you understand the natural process of this meditation, it just happens. Yes?
You said to start with the natural joy. Is it also to end with joy? Is that like what makes it, I don't know, I'm just thinking about the ending with some of the vipassanas being like, this is suffering.
Yes.
Like, as we are practicing meditation, if we're completing meditation and we're not feeling joy, like maybe it's to stay with the meditation longer, or...
Yeah, so the joy will always be there, and it will always get better. That's just bottom line. I call it more like bliss towards the end, because it's not that strong joy. So why I said that was that because at the very beginning, it's like normal that there is stronger joy. And that's why I put so much emphasis on the smiling, because it really boosts your meditation. Like it's hard, like loving kindness won't come nearly as much if you don't smile. And that's just, it's been tried many times. And it's just like, so, like it makes, I don't know, like a 300% difference. So that's conservative. And, but the thing is that stronger joy also needs to calm down. But the bliss of poise is still good. It's actually, each of these levels is better than the previous one. So that has to be really clear. Yeah. So yeah, no, there's not a turnaround point where it's like, oh yeah, I was like so good at the beginning, and now it's just like pain, like, no, that it just gets better. I like to remind people that the first thing that the Buddha did when he awoke under the Bodhi tree in Bodh Gaya was to sit cross-legged in one posture for 7 days, enjoying the bliss of freedom. Then he stood up, sat down onto another tree, cross-legged in one posture for 7 days, enjoying the bliss of freedom. And then a third time, he was just like, another tree. So there's got to be something good in there, guys. Like, it's not about cultivating suffering. This is not it. There will be hindrances, there will be distractions, there will be challenges. But if you keep doing the right effort, the wise practice, you'll move through them. And just never give up. There's just one direction. That's it. And then he stood up and looked at the Bodhi tree for 7 days without flinching. With gratitude. So it is said. And so this is the awakening of the Buddha. This is the Eightfold Path. This is how it works. Did I cover everything? Yes, the four fields, the little gardener, the wise awareness that sees things for what they are, what they need, and then the natural succession of things. As you practice like that, this is just what happens, and then there will be a beautiful forest of wholesome states. A beautiful ecosystem that you've actually nurtured and developed. And I think that's really beautiful. That is not something that, it's something that took me a bit of a time to realize, but yes.
Was just wondering what this triangle up here was again, I think you mentioned.
Right, yes. So in the sutta that I opened with, it says that basically wise understanding, wise presence, and wise practice all turn around and revolve each other and basically purify each of the four fields. That's how it works. That's what I've been trying to explain, and thank you for bringing that up because there's so many things on my sheet. But yeah, these three things, the wise understanding is like the template that we use, the blueprint for liberation. And then using wise awareness or wise presence, we apply it with wise practice. So this is how it turns. And at the level of intention, the level of speech, the level of action, the level of career or livelihood. This is the Eightfold Path. This is how it works. I'll just close with some verses where the Eightfold Path, those are some of my favorite verses in the canon that describe the Eightfold Path in a kind of a more poetic way. And it's very beautiful. It's called the Chariot of Dhamma, and I like to close this this understanding and talk with these verses. Both qualities of faith and discernment always yoked evenly together. With conscientiousness as the pole, mind as the rope, awareness as its careful driver. The complete body of virtue is the carriage, jhana or meditation, its axle. Inspiration, the wheels, steadiness of mind is the even alignment. The whole is covered and draped in contentment. Goodwill and harmlessness, letting go as a third, are its weaponry. Forgiveness is the armor and protection, headed to freedom from slavery. This divine vehicle, unsurpassed, arises from within oneself. With it, the wise leave behind this world, assured of the highest victory. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. May suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings share these merits that we have thus acquired for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, devas and nagas of mighty powers, share these merits of ours. May they long protect the Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu.